Beacon Press Audio presents Just Pills, The Extraordinary Story of a Revolution in Abortion Care by Rebecca Kelliher. This audiobook is narrated by Stina Nielsen, published by Beacon Press Audio, 2025. Chapter 1. The Pill That Makes Your Period Come Back. Around 1990 in Sao Paulo, Brazil, feminist psychology professor Margarite Arilha noticed something astounding. Fewer dead women. More than 1,500 miles away in Fortaleza, a city in Brazil's northeastern state of Ceará, Assis Chateaubriand maternity hospital records indicated that from 1988 to 1990, women admitted for abortion-related complications were surviving. This reversed what had been a devastating trend until then. In Brazil, as in most countries banning abortion in the 1980s, women who came to a hospital for care after self-inducing their abortions typically died within hours, even minutes. Arilha wanted to know why these women at this small hospital were not. The women themselves told the hospital workers plainly why. They took pills called Cytotec, a brand name for the medication misoprostol. Pharmacies across Brazil stocked Cytotec pills in packets of 28 tablets, with each tablet containing 200 micrograms of misoprostol. Researchers in Brazil would later find that if one needed just 4 or so misoprostol pills for an abortion, then those pills cost about $6 at the time, much cheaper than the roughly $140 needed for a clandestine abortion procedure in a clinic. That $140 was about how much the women known to be using misoprostol for their abortions earned in 1 month. How did women find out these pills could help them? Because they were smart. On each Cytotec box was a black and white stick figure of a visibly pregnant person in a dress, a red line diagonally cutting across her body to say, "If pregnant, do not take these pills." Okay, but what if someone did not want to be pregnant? In 1973, G.D. Searle and Company, an American pharmaceutical firm, had invented misoprostol, a synthetic prostaglandin, in a lab outside Chicago. Prostaglandins were hormone-like substances found in the body, with synthetic versions, like misoprostol, mimicking them. By the 1970s, scientists around the world were furiously researching prostaglandins, including their use for abortions. But Searle marketed Cytotec as a stomach ulcer treatment, not an abortion pill, calling this medication's ability to trigger contractions in pregnant people a side effect. In 1986, Brazil's government authorized Cytotec to be sold over the counter as an ulcer treatment, ignoring those side effects on its warning label, while north of the equator, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, looked likely to approve that same medication, also only for stomach ulcers. Searle representatives, eager to sell their new miracle drug in Brazil, flew to Sao Paulo weeks after Cytotec's approval in the country, ready to market Cytotec to doctors at the World Congress of Gastroenterology in the city. The company even supposedly placed a giant diorama of a stomach inside a conference hall to explain how these pills worked. Abortion was not mentioned. Brazil criminalized abortion in an 1890 penal code that was a painful remnant of colonization. For centuries in much of the world, ending a pregnancy, or helping someone else do so, had not been a crime. One of the earliest recorded abortions hailed from around 1550 BCE in ancient Egypt. But abortion criminalization began in many countries in the mid to late 19th century, largely when most of the imperial forces of Europe, like Portugal and Spain, thrust abortion bans on their colonies. Brazil updated its 1890 penal code in 1940 to at least allow a legal abortion for women and girls who could prove that they had been raped or suffered incest, or for a pregnant person whose life was deemed at risk. Those who provided an illegal abortion faced up to 4 years in prison, and those who had an illegal abortion risked up to 3 years in prison. Despite this, abortion in Brazil was common well before Cytotec. About 1.5 million women in Brazil had abortions each year, roughly the same as in the U.S. at the time, even though abortion had been legal in the U.S. since 1973 with Roe v. Wade. Still, that 1.5 million estimate of the number of abortions in Brazil was considered an undercount, given just how difficult it was to track a criminalized and, in a majority Catholic country, highly stigmatized procedure. Like most Brazilians, Arilia knew that if a woman had money, she could pay for an abortion, no matter what the law said. These abortion procedures were usually either a dilation and curettage, D&C, where a provider used surgical instruments to empty the person's uterus, or vacuum aspiration, still an invasive method, but typically safer. Poor women were left on their own, resorting to other means, like throwing themselves downstairs, punching their stomachs, exercising until collapse, or placing sharp objects inside their uteruses, risking perforation and infection that, if untreated, spelled almost certain death. Yet not with Cytotec. Arilia saw it in those hospital numbers. In 1988, at Assis Chateaubriand Maternity Hospital, about 12% of women hospitalized for abortion complications said they had taken Cytotec to end their pregnancies. That shot up to 50% the next year, then 72% the year after that. Women's use of misoprostol for abortions was not unique to that hospital, even to Fortaleza. A 1993 study found a similar trend at 7 public hospitals in Rio de Janeiro. That research and others would soon confirm what many Brazilian women knew. Misoprostol was an abortion pill. When Arilia was 8, her grandmother told her the story about her unwanted pregnancy. Her grandmother had a safe abortion procedure in Austria years before moving to Brazil. Once in Brazil, she underwent a second abortion beyond the law, in terrible conditions, Arilia recalled being told. Her grandmother was rushed to a hospital while she bled, only that hospital was a Catholic-affiliated facility strongly opposed to abortion. Arilia's grandmother was pressured to name who provided her abortion. She refused, saying, "I'll die if necessary, but I won't tell, because the decision for the abortion was mine, and I'm not going to denounce the people that tried to help me." Arilia remembered her grandmother like this, unashamed. "I had grown up in a home where abortion was discussed without a lot of fuss," she said in a 2018 interview in Portuguese, translated to English. "And I couldn't conceive of it as a crime." When Arilia was a college student in the 1970s, the political tumult in Brazil molded her, as she joined protests against the country's dictatorship, meeting feminists with bold ideas like universal women's health care, including abortion care. "I remember perfectly well," she recalled. "They were organizing for nonviolence, the right to abortion, the right to daycare." In the early 1980s, the dictatorship breathing its last gasp, Arilia and allies started strategizing to decriminalize abortion. They focused first on how to ensure at least the existing abortion law worked, that women who qualified for slim exceptions for legal abortions, rape, incest, or to save the pregnant person's life, would get that care. A year before Cytotec came to Brazil, the country's military rule toppled after more.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?